Hello and welcome, Amit, Samida, and the audience. In the present talks, we are going to have Amit Poddar from PRM 19, who is the speaker, and Swaminathan, who is the moderator for this session, also from PRM 19. Amit is going to talk about a very relevant topic, especially for the students or the people who want to be in academics. The topic is navigating academic journey from industry to academia in US. I will hand over this session to Swamida for the introduction and the moderation. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ritesh. Hi, Amit. It's good that we are doing this, and hi to all the fellow alumni who have joined us in today's conversation. I'm happy for this opportunity to, introduce my dear batchmate Amit, and hopefully moderate in a way that's useful for all of us who are taking the time out to have this conversation. So I think when we all entered campus in our batch, this was in 1998, and there were some batchmates who, came with a very clear idea of what their interests were and what their, focus would be, and whereas quite a few others were still, figuring out things. I think Amit belonged, I think it would be fair to say, Amit belonged in the first group. He came to campus with a BBA, correct, Amit?
Yeah.
Yeah, and from day one, it was evident to all of us who were his batchmates that marketing was his passion. And of course, over the 2 years, I mean, any management school is a place full of high energy. But even there, Amit was a really high energy person. And, Amit was, a straight shooting guy, no mincing words, full of enthusiasm for his pet areas. And he would express himself, without any holding back. So it was always, very interesting to see what Amit would bring to conversations and discussions in classroom and outside classroom and in the, hostels. So it's wonderful that, after all these years, of course, we had expected that Amit would go on to be a star practitioner, given his zeal and passion for the subject. So it surprised quite a few of us that Amit has, Amit took a turn, and of course he has scripted his journey as a star, academician. All said and done, all of us in the batch are very happy that Amit is a professor, still pursuing his passion for marketing, year in, year out, day in, day out. So with those words, I welcome Amit and thank Amit for taking this opportunity. Regarding Amit's professional stints, I think Amit would be better placed to talk about himself and give us all an overview. But Amit and I, we had brief conversation this week, and we decided what's the ground that we would like to cover. And Amit, I'm happy that he took notes and he put together a very comprehensive kind of presentation, which I'm sure will give all of us here a very good insight into this entire process of navigating the journey from all of us who might be in industry in India or in other parts of the world to a pathway that leads to academia in the US. And Amit will, I think, keep it free flowing. Depending on Amit's comfort level, we could have questions as he presents, or maybe if Amit, if you would like to finish presenting, and then we can, take questions. We leave it to you. You can suggest how you would like it. With that, I hand over to you, Amit. Yeah.
Well, well, thank you and good evening, everyone. Right, thank you, Swami, for that wonderful memory. Right, I didn't. Uh, I'm not sure. I came in with an idea, right, kind of a stuff. Maybe I gave a wrong impression. But like all of us, we are not exactly sure where we'll end up, right? And um, uh, but you're right. I never expected myself to go into academia, right? That was a change, which surprised me also. And I also want to thank Ritesh, who invited me, right? Ritesh has been on my LinkedIn for a long period of time, and it's just one fine day his message pops up and says, would you like to present? So I'm thankful to Ritesh for reaching out, and I think I'm okay, accepting questions, within, right? If there is a burning question, do not have to wait till the end, kind of a stuff, right? I was thinking initially this to be more free flowing, then we thought that maybe put together a PowerPoint kind of stuff, right? So I'll start by introducing myself. Currently, I am the chair of the marketing department at Salisbury University. It's a regional comprehensive university, and I'll go through what that is later on in the presentation. In the eastern or mid-Atlantic US, right? In Maryland. It's a we do have a master's program, but it's basically an undergraduate institution, around 9,000 students, which puts it roughly in the middle of the pack, when it comes to the US universities. So US universities are slightly different. So not only am I department head of the marketing department, I'm also director of the Mid-Atlantic Sales and Marketing Institute. It's basically a sales organization which I started for undergraduate students. Some part of what I learned in IRMA still lives on in that. So we conduct competitions for students. I mean, very fairly large competitions with students from all around the country. And sometimes outside also in the Purdue School of Business. So I'm in the Purdue School of Business, Purdue Chicken. Many of you might remember from your marketing classes, one of the classic ads which are discussed is, it takes a tough man to make a tender chicken. I don't know whether you recall, some of those. I'm number 2, so therefore I try hard. Avis, Purdue, these ads became very, very famous, in textbooks and all that. So it is that Purdue chicken, right? And I've had the fortune of meeting Jim Purdue, right? Who is still alive and comes to our campus. And so I will. Okay, so that's about me. I will definitely take you a little bit more through the program, about myself, my academic journey and whatnot. So the agenda that I have, is basically my introduction, right? A little bit more. What does a PhD program in business look like? I know a lot of people have reached out over the years in different positions saying, okay, I want to do a PhD in the US, right? What does it look like? What is the, how to get in? Okay. Swami, are you maintaining, like, are people supposed to put questions to you, or, straight away ask questions?
We'll keep track. You continue, Amit.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how to enter into a PhD program? What is a good PhD program? What does the academic job market look like? What is climbing the academic ladder? And obviously, and then finally, I'll leave it to questions. Any questions? Feel free. I will answer everything that I know about. So I have done this at a personal level. Many people have reached out, but this is the first time, I'm saying I'm doing it as a whole. So some qualifiers. I know a lot of IRMANs do go for PhDs, but they go for social sciences, development economics and all that. This is not it. This is or for PhD programs in India and Europe, like FPM programs, or going for programs in Europe. programs in India, programs in Europe are very, very different from programs in the US, right? I know a little bit about it. If people want to know, right, what are the differences, cost benefit kind of a stuff, I would be happy to address that, right? So the focus is mainstream business management PhD programs in the US, right? So if you're interested in PhDs in social sciences, we have a lot of faculty, we have a lot of Illmans who are very esteemed, or maybe a lot more accomplished than me in those areas. They would be the ideal people, because the PhD programs in the social sciences work very, very differently from PhD programs in business and management. So the main disciplines. So just a little bit about my journey to here, right? My first job straight out of IRMA was with the Tata Group. I joined Rallis India. I was one of those people who went out of campus. I think that has changed now. But when Swami would remember, when we were there, any private company was just not allowed, on campus, right? We literally ran away to, I think, Bombay, some group, gave interviews, came back, did an exam, and we somehow ended up with jobs, right? But for some period of time, we were persona non grata on campus, right? Swami, you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, but the Tata Group was a great experience, because it was related with what we learned in IRMA, right? I started selling fertilizers, right? And I think Rallis India, which is a big company, the whole goal was to recruit Illmans for positions in sales and marketing in fertilizer sales and pesticide sales. So there were a group of people from our batch who joined Rallis India, together, and but they couldn't come on campus. Very soon, I got bored, or maybe I was just looking for something else, so I joined Olam International as a branch coordinator in Ghana. So I spent 1.5 years in Ghana as a branch coordinator buying cocoa, right? And again, Olam has a lot of Illmans, currently in high positions. And I don't know, maybe juniors are still joining, but at that point in time, Olam used to hire a lot of Illmans, right? Send us straight to African countries, and Africa and Asia and South America. And I was there for 1.5 years. As I was joining Olam, I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember why I did that, but somehow I took the GMAT. I guess I wanted to go to the US, but I didn't want to pay for it. So I found out that, if you do the PhD, apparently you can get a full ride. So I gave my GPAT and the score was decent, right? And I applied to a few. I didn't even know, I didn't do much research. Internet is just about starting. You can't do too much. I went to some US, consulate place, library or something like that, and chose a few universities. And most of them rejected, except one, which was Georgia State, right? And as luck would have it, I got the admission at the same time I got the job in Olam, right? Literally the same week or something like that, I got 2 letters, one saying, please come to the PhD program, and one saying, come to Olam. And at that point in time, I contacted my advisor, right? And advisors, as you will see, why it becomes important. And I told him that, I've got this job. And he asked me, what does this job involve, right? And I said, this is sourcing in Africa. It's a great experience, but I don't want to leave the PhD program, so what do you suggest? And he suggested something, which I'm forever grateful to him. He said, okay, go and do it, right? Go and take up this job, do it for 1-2 years, right? As long as you are comfortable, and it would be great experience. At that point in time, if you're still interested, just let me know, and I will offer you the PhD spot, right? Even 2 years from now, kind of a stuff, which I was very, very grateful. So I went for Olam, great experience, learned a lot. But after 1.5 years, I said, what, maybe I have an offer waiting, right? Or maybe let me contact him back and see if the offer still stands. And and he immediately said, "Yep, I remember my promise. Just get your visa and and come." So I won't go into the visa story. That's a different story altogether, right? But somehow I got the visa, even though I was in Africa, right? And I ended up at Georgia State, where I completed a PhD. Georgia State is in Atlanta, and after that, I joined as assistant professor of marketing at Georgia College, and then I joined Salisbury University, my current university, as the chair. This is my second stint as chair. I joined as chair as a promotion as an associate professor of marketing. Now I'm full professor of marketing, also the department chair. So this is my second stint. So this is my introduction in terms of the stages that I have to go through. Academia doesn't have too many promotions, right? So this is probably, I've come to the end of my, at least my academic, growth. Now it is all on you kind of a stuff.
I think the only thing that would remain is to be Professor Emeritus or some such thing, right?
Yeah, that is retirement, right? So that they give. So we'll wait for that, right? I am so in academia, and I'll talk about this, right? I am decently published, and this will become important when we discuss about what is required kind of a stuff. In the last 20 odd years, I have published around 26 papers. I don't have any books, but you'll learn, that maybe books don't matter as much. Almost 5,000 citations. The only reason why I show this is, that I have done, what is required of a PhD student, right? Like if you were to ask my advisor, did I meet whatever his expectation was, I think he would say, you have done okay, right? Kind of a stuff. People might have higher expectations. So I have 5,000 citations, right? So at least 5,000 people have read my papers, right? In academia, the things we write for each other rather than for the general public, right? And so I've been decently published. So I have a little bit of experience in terms of, what a PhD program is all about and how you can make yourself a success if this is something that you are aiming for. So let's talk about any questions. No questions? That's fine. Okay, so if you are looking for a PhD program in business, especially in the US, what should you look for? This is the million-dollar question everybody asks, right? What you're looking for, if you are in the market and you are saying that, I've been working in industry and I also want to make the jump. I want to go back to academia, and or you have always had the academic bug, right? But you are not exactly sure, right? What you're looking for. What you should look for in a PhD program is fit. Now, fit is you would hear this word, when you apply to programs, they would always talk about fit a lot. And Vijay, okay, thank you. So you are always looking for fit, right? You have to look at your own interest. Maybe you are interested in finance and you want to do something related to finance, right? So choose your discipline first. It can be finance, marketing. When we talk about business disciplines, basically it is business. There's nothing called business. Sorry, I take it back. Management. You can be in marketing, finance, information systems, and and accounting, right? So these are the major business disciplines. Note that I did not mention economics. In many schools, economics is not in the business school. It is in the social sciences, right? So their PhDs can be very, very different. Although you do find economics PhDs, entering the business school, and some business schools will have economics department, but generally economics departments are very, very different. Their job profile and their job opportunities are also very different. So you have to look at what discipline you want. Now, here's the good thing about PhD programs. It doesn't matter, at least here, once you have done your IRMA, it doesn't matter what your undergraduate was. You can still, suppose you're a marketing student, you will always want to do in marketing, in IRMA, but you want to do a finance PhD, absolutely accepted. You just have to get admission into a finance PhD. So as long as you can convince the recruiting committee that you would be great in finance, they will hire. So there is no limitation to, but you have to choose a discipline, right? Also suggest choose the highest ranking school that you can find. Don't do what I did, but that's a very different world these days, right? So you can, I mean, internet has opened up. You can find good schools very, very easily. You can find a lot of rankings, and rankings for individual disciplines are different. So one school could be a top school for marketing, and another school could be a top school for finance, right? Okay. So please go and try and find the highest ranking school which will admit you. Okay. Highest ranking school becomes very important later on once you graduate.
Amit,
Very similar. Yep.
Can I interrupt you? I think this is a good point to take a couple of questions.
Sure.
The first one relates to your the number of papers that you publish. So Avdut from PRM 41 has a question. Did you publish papers before joining a PhD program?
Okay.
So that's one. The second question, you mentioned that economics comes under social sciences and it's not in the management school, right? So I think Mohit has a related question. Mohit, please correct me if I'm wrong. You're asking if HR comes in the management scope of management schools, correct? Is that right, Mohit?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if, he mentioned about financial management and accounts.
Right.
What about if somebody wants to pursue PhD in human resource, HR?
Right, right, okay. So these are the two questions, Amit. So maybe if you would like to take these now and then come back to continue your point about the highest ranking school. Yeah.
Sure. So first, the simpler one, HR is in management, right? So if you're looking for a PhD in HR, right, you would look for a management PhD degree, right? So management would generally consider management PhD degrees are basically concerned with strategic management or HR or to some extent international management, right? So these are the three disciplines where people do PhDs in the management discipline. The first question was regarding all these papers were published not before, after. So you don't need to have a paper published to get into a PhD program. PhD program is to prepare you to how to publish papers. They are not looking for that. Can you publish papers or so it's not a requirement. But obviously, if you have a published paper in a good journal, mind you, right? So that matters a lot, right? So a paper published in some obscure journal, and you send it to a committee, admission committee, and say, here I have a paper published, but nobody has heard about that. That might end up hurting you rather than helping you, right? But if you were to say that I have been interested, I've been working with people, maybe I tried out as a student I published something with my faculty in my IRMA days. It can help. There's no harm in doing that, but it's not a requirement. You don't have to be a published author before you apply for a PhD program. Does that answer, Mohit? And
Avdut, yeah.
Avdut, right?
Yeah.
Did that answer?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Amit sir.
Okay. Another thing, if you're looking to come to the US, PhD programs are generally housed in R1 institutions. These are generally big universities, and don't look for location. Don't look for that, I want to be in New York City, so therefore I would only look for New York schools, or I want to stay later on my life, maybe your family there, I only want to be in the West Coast, I want to be in San Francisco, or I want to be in LA. So I'm only going to look for schools in LA. And it would become clear, as we go forward, look for the best school, right? Don't look for location. Most of the schools are in rural areas. The US is actually much, much rural than, we make out from TV, and most of these schools are in the middle of nowhere, right? So in a way, it's like almost like IRMA kind of a stuff. We are far away from the hustle and bustle, but don't look for location. Look for the highest ranking school. Ability, schools will take GMAT or GRE. Scores vary, right? I'm assuming scores would have only gone up, right? As time has gone by, people have become better and better. Work experience can be counted, but I see a lot of PhD students who come without work experience. So work experience is not like if you don't have work experience, you won't get into a PhD program. I don't think that is the case, right? So try to get into the highest ranking school, you have to get the best GMAT score, right? The higher you have, the more like a top university will probably look at your packet, right? And but work experience will not, so if you think that you have worked a lot and people are going to your admission chances increase, not necessarily.
Amit, I have a
Yep.
question.
Okay.
You suggested that people who are interested should look at the highest ranking school.
Mhm.
Which ranking is the standard ranking to go by? How do they?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I wish I had an answer, like, okay, go to this website kind of a stuff. What happens is most of these rankings, because PhD programs are small, right? In a batch, you would have 4 or 5 students, right?
Right.
So most of these rankings, the people who do these rankings, US News and all that, these rankings are basically undergraduate rankings for undergraduate students, right? And it is meant to attract students, or MBA rankings, right? MBA rankings, FT comes out with the ranking and all that. That is generally not a true measure kind of a stuff. You will have to do a little bit digging, depending on discipline by discipline. Some institutions will come out, right? And these rankings for PhD programs will be based on publications, will be based on citations, citation ranking, like who are the big scholars kind of a stuff. So when I mean ranking, you are looking for department rankings, right? So the department, everybody knows that Harvard and Stanford are the top schools, right? Whichever ranking you pick, but they might not be the top school for accounting, right? They might be number 20, right? They might be number 10. That is based on how many, what is the productivity of the faculty? What is the, basically it's productivity of the faculty, right? If the faculty are producing at the highest level, then, that school gets ranked higher in the PhD programs, right? But I'm sure somebody does these PhD program rankings also. You'll have to do, and that's what the PhD is all about. You have to do a little bit of digging, right? So anybody who wants to go in has to do this kind of digging. So some good PhD program characteristics, probably it will answer also, right? Generally a good PhD program characteristic is they will always pay you to study, right? You can almost use it as a heuristic, right? Any school which says you have to pay tuition, right, is probably not a good school, right? So they are running, see, the US is a big market. US is a huge market. When you start looking, you'll find PhD programs promising a lot of things, right? Some of them, just like in India, right? There are fly-by-night operators, there are good schools, there are medium schools, right? Any school which is running a PhD program to earn money, right? Which is like they want students to do a PhD and, they want you to pay tuition. It's generally not a good school, okay? Good PhD programs will not only pay for your tuition, it will be fully paid for, but it will always, at least in the business disciplines, they come with a stipend on top. They always come with a stipend on top, just for living expenses. Not, you can't live luxuriously, but just about survive kind of stuff. Another good PhD program characteristic, if you're looking for, is full-time. They will generally tell you that you cannot work and do a PhD at the same time. They will, it will be very, very clear. They will say you would be a full-time student and you would be working for 4 to 5 years, right? To complete your degree. Okay. Any program which says, oh, you can work on the side and, do the PhD program. There are lots, which will promise you that. Probably not a good PhD program. Another thing to look for in Swami, there are 2 people in the waiting room,
Yeah,
2 or
yeah.
3 people. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So another thing to look for in a good PhD program is, where are the PhD students placed? Where is the alumni placement? If you go to a PhD program's website and you find that all the PhD students are in top schools like Stanford, Harvard, MIT and all that, you have come to a very, very good cohort kind of a stuff, right? It's absolutely, wonderful. Swami asked a question, how do you find, the list kind of a stuff? One of the best ways to look at is, who are the top scholars in your discipline? Who are the top scholars in finance? Who are the top scholars in marketing? Who are the top scholars in in management, right? And the way to look for the top scholars is, don't go by book authors, right? Swami and I were joking, right? That when we went to IRMA, I'm sure many of you also remember, right? Like Philip Kotler, right? Many people,
Yes.
including myself, Philip Kotler was like the god, of marketing.
Sir, I'm
But
in an online meeting, Zoom webinar. I'll call you in half an hour. Yeah.
so
I'll call you.
yeah, so Philip Kotler, is one of the top, persons, and we all go through their book. But in my 20 years, I have never read a Philip Kotler article. I have never cited a Philip Kotler article, and I don't think he would be considered in the top 100 scholars at all. Although he's the most public-facing individual who has ever been born in the marketing field, right? But so don't go by book authors, books that you have read. Look at articles. Articles are the currency of the PhD program, right? So look for the top scholars and see where they work, right? And if you can get a chance to work with these top scholars who are publishing in Journal of Marketing, who are publishing in Journal of Finance, who are publishing in whatever the top journal is in management. So that will give you a very, very good idea of where these people work. And nowadays, you can just search it up, Google Scholar, and try to see where these people work. Very easy to find out where these people work, and get into a PhD program where these people are working. Okay, red flags when you're looking for a PhD program. Remember what, as I mentioned, a lot of people, there are a lot of universities, and all these universities will promise you the moon, right? You don't want to end up in the wrong university, right? Any university which says it allows you to work full-time while doing PhD is probably not a good university, right? Just a rule of thumb. If you have to pay tuition, not a good university. Any university which says, I will consider your experience in lieu of coursework. You don't have to do coursework at all, but you can straight away do your dissertation. You can straight away write your dissertation. Not a good university. Online PhDs, right? Even from a top university, right? Sometimes these universities have these 2 sides. One is a business money-making side, and one is the academic side, right? And many times they don't talk with each other. An online PhD where you can get a PhD from the US, you just have to pay $10,000, $15,000, right? And you will get a job afterwards. Nobody will distinguish. That is just not true, right? So do not do any of these things if you're going to invest 4 to 5 years of your life in an academic program. So timeline of a PhD program, generally in the first year, you do courses, seminars. Nowadays, generally most of these courses are statistics courses, because the PhD program generally doesn't teach you about the subject. You might do a few courses. So if you go into finance, they won't teach you into finance, right? But they would teach you how to do research in finance, right? You would read papers and you would try to decipher how you can, you can do similar kind of work. So a lot of method courses that is required. So the first 2 years are basically courses that you would be doing. Before the 3rd year, you generally take a comprehensive exam. And unless things have changed drastically in the last 20 years, the comprehensive exam used to be an up or out kind of a thing, right? So you take an exam, a combined exam for the last 2 years, whatever you have studied, they will ask you 10 questions, which you have to answer by memory, including references and all that. And if you pass, then you become a PhD candidate. Otherwise, they will give you some kind of a master's program and kick you out, kind of a stuff. I don't know whether they still kick people out, but at least when I was going through it, they used to kick people out, anybody who could not pass the comprehensive exam, right? There's also a joke that when you take the PhD comprehensive exam, that is the time when you are probably the most intelligent, when you know the most about a discipline, because you have to literally memorize every paper, or not memorize, understand every paper that you have read so far, all the basic papers in your discipline. If you do your comprehensive exam well, now you start on your proposal defense. Now you propose, this is the area that I want to do a research on. This is my topic. This is going to be my dissertation topic. You generally go through it with your advisor, right? And this is also when they make you start teaching, right? Probably they will give you 1 course to teach. 4th year, you go to the job market, right? Generally in the beginning of your 4th year. Some programs are 5th year, so probably it will be in the 5th year. But you go into a job market. Now you're teaching full-time. Maybe you are teaching 2 courses a semester. You're teaching independently, depending on the school. Some schools will not allow you to teach independently till the 4th year. In smaller level schools, which Georgia State was at that point in time, it's no more. But at that point in time, we could. I was allowed to teach an independent undergraduate course in my 2nd year, right? At the end of 4th year, you do your dissertation defense. Generally, by this time, you should have got a job, right? So that is very, very important. So you get your job as what is called ABD, all but dissertation. So universities will interview you. Universities will, look at what dissertation you're doing, and hopefully you get a job based on that. So that's the timeline of PhD program, a 4-year PhD program. It extends, or I doubt it. You can do it in 3 years, but 4 to 5 years is very, very common. Okay. The academic job market, it is a rat race to quite some extent, right? And remember, as I had mentioned initially, don't look for location. Like if you want to be in New York City, don't look for PhD program in New York City. There's a very good reason for this. In the US, for the most part, schools will not hire their own students. Schools will not hire their own students, other than some, like very, very top schools like Harvard and Stanford. And even they would basically, a Harvard graduate will go into Stanford and vice versa kind of a stuff. But students, so if you want to go into a particular university, you want to go into University of Chicago, don't do a PhD from University of Chicago, even if they, offer. So for me, it's almost impossible to go back to Georgia State, although I would love to do it, right? But they just won't hire because I graduated from there. Advisor matters. Who is your advisor? If you chose your PhD program well, your advisor can open a lot of doors. If your advisor is the top scholar in the field, you can get a job in a very, very good university. The school matters, as we already talked about. And the final placement, once you are in the job market, you would have 3 choices. You can go to a research school, a similar school to the way you have graduated in, which are PhD programs, right? If you have always wanted to teach, research schools don't like teaching. Teaching is ancillary. You will have to teach, but that is not why they are hiring you. They are hiring you just so that you can publish. Okay. Research schools are also very intensive, right? So they expect you to publish in the top journals. If you are not, then too bad. You can also go to regional comprehensive schools like ours, right? We are what are called balanced schools. We like faculty to do research, but we also want them to be involved in teaching. So if you have always wanted to go into PhD programs because you love teaching to give back, this is probably the school for you, right? And there are a lot of schools in that range in the US. While research schools might be 200, 300, regional comprehensive can be 1,000 schools like that, right? But even then, there are limitations. Then there are pure teaching schools. These are schools I don't recommend going, right? These are schools which don't have any requirement for research. These schools also don't pay very well, right? These are what you can call teaching mills, very, very small schools. You are basically teaching 4 to 5 courses. You would be disappointed if you end up in a pure teaching school kind of a stuff. That's my personal opinion. I mean, obviously, if you just like teaching or you just like a location, maybe that is the only option you might have. Any questions so far?
Hi, Amit. So, irrelevant to what we are discussing, but I just wanted to understand. So, in India, we have fellowship programs offered by the IIMs.
Yeah.
If you are going for a foreign universities, such programs are also there, or is it only the PhD programs? And if only PhD programs, I mean, if they offer both types of programs, I mean, what is the distinction between fellowship as well as the PhD programs?
Okay. You mean the FPM?
Right.
Okay. FPM, again, as I said, India PhD programs are very, very different, right? So FPM is the IIM's version of a PhD program, right? Because they are not a university, they can't call it PhD. From what I understand, they call it the fellow program in management, I believe, right? So it's very similar. It's very similar. There's not too much of a difference, right? Because they have modeled it on US PhD programs. I'm not exactly sure. There are a lot of IRMANs who have done FPM, including PRM. I think PRM 20 has a lot of faculty, who are now in IIM, who did it from IIM. But I don't think there is too much of a difference there. It's just a nomenclature thing. But in India, I think only from a full university you can do a PhD. Everywhere else, you have to call it some, like we are PGDRM, right? We are like IRMA was never MBA. We were PGDRM. I don't know whether it has changed, right?
There's no change. There's no change. Yeah, it's still the same. Yeah.
Yeah, but technically it is an MBA, right? But it is PGDRM because of it's not from a university. I think that's what. Similarly, I think IIM also, it's not called an MBA. It's called something else, right? PG something.
I think, yeah, they also called it PGP, postgraduate program.
Right? So, but if you go to University of Delhi, right, they will say, you're doing an MBA. So it's just a nomenclature thing.
Understood. So such distinction is not there in the foreign universities because they are full universities mostly.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, everyone is a full university. It's a very, the government has very little role, right? Since you raised this issue, I'll add on to one thing, which is not there in the. When you start looking for PhD programs in the US, you will also find a new beast, which has come into the market, which is called the DBA, Doctorate in Business Administration. Okay. Same school will offer a PhD program and a DBA program. Okay. And they will tell you that the DBA program is equal to a PhD program. You can get jobs, which is also true, right? Kind of a stuff. The DBA program is generally used by universities nowadays to offer an opportunity for people who are already working to get something in academia. It's generally not considered a research degree. It's considered more, you have to do a little bit of research, but it is not a full time and you have to pay for it, right? So if you have a chance between a DBA and a PhD, always do the PhD. Okay, but that nomenclature thing has also come in the US, so you have to do your due diligence, before you jump into it. It's 4 years of your life kind of stuff. Does that answer your question, Avdut?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Amit.
Okay. Okay. You have got a job, right? So now what? So how do you climb the academic ladder? Now, in the US, at least, there's no reader position and all that kind of a stuff. You join as an assistant professor, you become associate, and you become full. These are the only 3 ranks which are there. To go from assistant to associate, when you join, there's this concept which is called tenure. If you have never heard of this, the moment you join a PhD program, everybody will be talking about tenure, right? Tenure is the grand prize. What does tenure mean? In the US, generally all jobs without anything are what is called at-will jobs. That means anybody can fire you without giving any reason. Nobody has to give you a reason. Your boss can call you and say, okay, sorry, our position is not there, right? They don't have to give you a reason. Except in academia. Even in academia, it is at will, right? All the people who work in academia are at will employees. It's a legal term, at will. Except if you have tenure. Tenure means you can't be fired without a valid reason, right? So academics fight to get this position, to be in this position where nobody can fire you, and this is based on freedom of speech and all these things which you are hearing in the news these days, right? So the university cannot fire you if you say something which goes against the university's like the university says the earth is flat, and you say no, the earth is round, and the president is an idiot, right? For saying this, they can't fire you, right? So because you have done it on the basis of research, your research shows that the earth is round while the university is saying the earth is flat, right? So they can't fire you just because you have said something which upsets the higher administration. So tenure is the grand prize, and generally tenure comes when you become assistant to associate professor, right? So if you are getting so much of a job security in a country where there's no job security, the expectations are also pretty high, right? So how do you get tenure? So depending on which level of school you go to, if you're going to a top school, the expectation would be you have to publish 5 or 6 top journal articles, right? Research, you have to show yourself good in research, you have to show yourself good in teaching, and you have to show yourself good in service, right? And if you do all these 3, you can get tenure. And and it's generally an up or out kind of a decision. So you get 5 years. At the end of 5 years, either you get tenure and you become an associate professor, or you have to look for a job in a different university and start the process all over again. So in academia, there's this publish or perish culture, especially in the US. I'm not exactly sure how much of that is in India or in Europe, right? But in the US, there is a very clear publish or perish. So, and if you don't get tenure, now you won't get, another university will not hire you. Generally go to a lower ranked university. So there's a publish or perish, and the only thing which counts for publication is papers, real, authentic, new knowledge. So you are they're hiring you to create new knowledge, not just so there's going to be, without publications, you're not going to get tenure. The volume of publications and the quality of publications can vary, but you have to publish original work before you can get tenure. There's limited value of consulting. I know many everyone say maybe I can do consulting. Many PhD program, if you do a FPM from IRM, if you join IRM also, right? So you do a lot of consulting. Here, at least when it comes to tenure, there is a very limited value of consulting. For whatever reason, US universities don't value consulting. There is a limited value of writing books also. If you write a book and you say, thousands of people are reading from the book, you won't get tenure. You won't get tenure if you write a book, right? And there's absolutely, I would say, not only limited, probably zero value of working papers or going to international conferences, presenting your work in international conferences. It's just not counted, right? So the main thing which counts is, are you able to create new knowledge, publish it in peer-reviewed journals, Are you able to teach well, and the students appreciate what you do? And are you able to do service to your profession and to your discipline and so on and so forth, right? So in summary, and I know I have just 9 minutes left, I want to keep some time for questions. IRMANs do very well as academics. I know a lot of IRMANs who are the top in the field. I'm not even in the middle kind of a stuff, right? IRMANs have done very, very well in the base disciplines of marketing, right? So some of the IRMANs who are in academia, especially in marketing, they're the top scholars. Okay, so IRMANs do very well. Our training is very well. You can, all of us, what we go through in IRMA will make your PhD program much, much easier. Don't write off a PhD from the US, because you have heard you can't work and all that kind of stuff. It is actually provides a very good career. It's decently well paying. It's decently well paying, right? You won't make bank, but you won't be poor also, right? So it's a very good career. And because you are your own boss, right? Once you get tenure, you literally can do what you want to do as long as you teach, as long as you show up on your class two times a week or 3 times a week or whatever. You can do whatever research you want. You don't have to take permission from anyone. You are literally your own boss. So you are like your own independent entity. And I would like to end by saying, obviously, India economy, as the economy has become better and better, we see less and less Indians going for PhD programs. I don't know how many IRMANs nowadays, go for PhD programs. But from my personal perspective, I would like more IRMANs doing PhD, being the thought leaders, creating these books that we read, so in the first place, a lot of things that we did as IRMANs, like social CSR and all those, these have become very, very important topics nowadays, right? Bottom of the pyramid marketing, subsistence marketing, right? Subsistence markets. These have become mainstream topics, which used to be, just on the side. Now they have become mainstream topics, which are being tackled by mainstream academics, not just the development economics and all that kind of stuff. In the management schools, marketing professors, finance professors, they are tackling these topics, which we have been reading for the last 30, 40 years in IRMA. So that is my presentation. I thank you for listening, patiently, right? I will answer. I'll now take any questions that you have, right? And later on, if you still have questions, that's my email address. Shoot me an email, and I will definitely try to, answer anything that is left off. So that's me.
Poddy, I'll just add a quick comment. Thanks for this great presentation, the view of an insider. I think definitely it had a lot of surprises for this small group. Not the least of those surprises was that after so many years in the US, you still don't have an accent. Or maybe it's only for this occasion you turned off that accent.
No,
but
I
great.
don't have an accent, right?
Great. So great. So I'll stop here. And we have a small group of people who've been listening with a great deal of interest. We will, throw it open for questions before, unless Ritesh wants to say something before that. Yeah.
No, thanks, Samida. I have nothing to say. It's well on audience to interact and ask any questions.
So maybe I could ask all the people who are here, how many are, who is keenly considering a PhD program, or is this out of academic interest, so to say? Anyone?
Yeah, I am contemplating.
Oh, great. Okay.
Wonderful.
Good.
Hi. So I just wanted to understand one thing. I mean, I know it's off topic. So you have already given us the timeline of the PhD program. What's the timeline of getting to a tenure? I know it's a very difficult thing for a a person to get to a tenure, but I mean, how much time generally it takes to get a tenured professor?
Sure. Good question. 5 years. So when you get your first job as assistant professor, you get 5 years. It's like a probationary period, right? So you get 5 years, and every school will have a certain level of expectation, and they'll tell you, right? Our expectation is you will have 5 publications at a certain level of journal or higher, right? So much teaching and so on and so forth. But at the end of 5 years, it's up or out, right? So generally your department will vote, your colleagues will vote, the tenured faculty will vote on your application, and they would say, this person deserves to get tenure. It's almost like a job for life kind of a stuff, right? So 5 years. At the end of 5 years, on your 6th year, if you get tenure, you are set. If you don't move, right? Generally people don't move as much in the US because of this tenure thing. So there's a negative side to tenure also, right? Because moving, once you get tenure, you don't want to go through the process again, right? So very few people move. Like I moved once, with after getting tenure, and there's always a X amount of factor. Plus, we are now older, we have children, so you don't know, right? So, but 5 years.
Thank you, Amit.
Any other question? I think Ritesh, your mic is off.
I believe there are no questions from the audience as of now. So
Yeah.
we will conclude this session. But before that, thanks Amit for kindly coming, and of course there is a time difference. It must be morning for you, and preparing the slides and answering the questions diligently. I also want to thank Swamida on this weekend, but it's always good to see, two batchmates. We do not know, I've never met Amit, but it's good to know how he was and what his passions were. And it always brings us together. Also, thanks to the audience who came to listen to Amit, especially some of the students like Mohit, Abdul, who may be interested in doing PhD. It will be useful for them. On this note, I will end this session, at least the recording. And if you want, you can interact informally. I will post this video on the website. We have a YouTube channel. And this is for the benefit of the alumni and students who have not been able to attend the session. They will go through it, and if they have any questions or any feedback, they can come back either to Amit or Swamida or contact us, and we can direct them to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ritesh, and thank you, Swami. Right, it was wonderful just meeting both of you.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll run into each other, someday. But
Amit. Yeah, in fact, I think Avdut is saying thank you so much for the session. It was really insightful. I think I would just like to add here, Amit. Sorry that I have to interrupt you. I think it was definitely eye-opening for all of us who, listened to you. And I think you pointed out that it's a very serious kind of pursuit in a very specific way, PhD program in the US, which may not have been the, picture that most of us might have had. So we had a small group, but I think we had an interested group, and what you shared was really insightful and valuable. So great. I think it was a good opportunity. Please, I think I'll leave you to have the